So let's meditate for, I'll set the clock for half an hour. I'll give a bit of instruction, and then you have your own ways of meditating, that's fine. But we'll use a half hour to enter into the silence of heart. Always a good thing to do. So take a posture that is comfortable. You can sustain pretty well for half an hour without moving much, so you're not restless. And bring your attention into the present moment, into the body, and just feel your body sitting here. So let the body become conscious in awareness. And notice when, as soon as you make that kind of intention, you notice the stillness of awareness. So awareness has no real quality. And the stillness of knowing is what we're cultivating. And we use objects to remember the stillness of awareness, the stillness of knowing. So listen to sound, and let the sound come to you. And don't worry about the quality of the sound, but pay attention to the stillness of knowing, awareness of sound. And then feel your hands. Feel both hands. Allow the feelings in the hands to become conscious. And there's the stillness of knowing. Go back to sound. Allow sound to become conscious. And again, the stillness of knowing. So the stillness of knowing doesn't change. Sense objects change. So meditation, what I try to do is remember the stillness of knowing, irrespective of the object. So whether it's the breath or whatever, it doesn't matter so much. So feel the breathing of your body. Allow breathing to become conscious. And notice the stillness of knowing. You know you're breathing. Breathe a bit more deeply. Expand your breath. Does the stillness of knowing change? Now breathe more shallow, just a little breath. Does the stillness of knowing change? Listen to sound. Notice sound, let it be conscious. Is the stillness of knowing different? Feel your hands. Feel your breath. So you can see there's something that's changing, sense experience. And then the knowing, the stillness of knowing. So this is what we're cultivating, this recognition of the stillness of knowing. So it's not the same as concentrating on the object. That's when you're trying to hold your attention on the object. Here you're trying to notice awareness itself. So the quality of the practice is to notice the still awareness. Now, take the breathing and then stay with the breathing. Let the breathing be what it is. Let it be conscious. But now it's a pointer to the stillness of knowing rather than it being important in and of itself. It's not so much about the breathing, although the breathing is helpful because it's going on right now. So stillness of knowing for one in-breath, stillness of knowing for one out-breath. So it's a relaxed and receptive sustaining of that attitude of stillness knowing. They're very, very simple. And then what is complicated is thought, memory, planning, worry. And when you notice all of that, then return to the stillness of knowing. Don't try to get rid of thought. Just be patient. And then return to the breath. Stillness of knowing one in-breath, stillness of knowing one out-breath. And just let it proceed in that way. Okay, let's just sit in silence then and appreciate that stillness of knowing.
Greetings, Luang Por. We should now request the Dhamma talk. Brahma Chaloka Dipati Sahampati Patanjali Anandivara Ayajata Santida Sata Rajakat Dese tu Dhamma Anukampiman Bhajan.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Hello again, everyone. Many people have sent me birthday wishes, so thank you. And the friends in Singapore even sang happy birthday. But William, I think you need more practice. It was a good try. No, it's very sweet of you. Thank you. So, I am 75. It's an interesting one, isn't it? So there's certainly the passport which says 75. I don't have a birth certificate. My parents are refugees, so somehow that got lost, but I think I was born. Seems apparent. And then of course you can see pictures of me at age whatever you want. And some of the pictures of me at the age of 20 you wouldn't want to look at. And then you can even see a video of me at some point. And certainly I can feel bodily aches which fit a 75-year-old body. In fact, Ajahn Sumedho wrote to me yesterday. He wished me happy birthday, and he cheekishly said, "May you live to be 120." So that's 45 more years, right? I better get my knees in shape for that. So I am 75, and there's proof there. And yet, when you try to find the I within those different perceptions and histories, you can't find anything, can you? It's really curious. So on one hand, I could say, like when I get off the floor, I look like a arthritic giraffe. Not so graceful anymore. If you know, all of you who are over 25, you know what I mean. So it's not so pretty. And yet, so there is the body, and there are perceptions, and there are memories, and all of that is going on. So there's this whole experience of me. And yet, when I say to myself, I am 75, my mind goes silent. So is there something kind of separate called me and the experiences of needs and perceptions and histories and all of that? Does that actually exist? Well, there is consciousness. That's true. So that I can't deny, presence, consciousness. But then this extra thing called I can never find it. And that's not being, it's not like giving you kind of a Buddhist doctrine of an anatta, but it's a kind of very serious spiritual inquiry to look at that assumption that I am a person called Viradhammo in time, and that I was born and that I will die. That's the usual identity, and that's a necessary identity, really. And it's not that it's wrong, it's a convention that's true. So, I do have a passport, and I do have a health card, and all the rest, and I wear glasses, and I need the right prescription. So to not deny that, and in fact, to honor that, that's very, very important. It's important to take care of the body and to fulfill my responsibilities and such like. But is that all there is? Is there only like this worldly experience, which is sometimes up and down, happy and sad, and so on? Is there not another? Is it not something we're missing? And this might, this is, I think, what the Buddha was talking about in his realization or his enlightenment, that if you only identify with your personal history, if you only identify with your nationality, with your body type, with your gender, with your memories of things you did well and did not do well, if that is your only identity, then I would say we're missing something. If you don't honor that, then you're missing something too. So if I don't honor that this body is 75 and it shouldn't be going on the roof and working on the tiles on the roof, then I'll fall down and hurt myself. And that I don't have so that's true. But to me, like a lot of people one of the common things I find people say, well, I'm not religious. I don't like religion. All right, go for it. That's the kind of modern take on it. But then I say, but they also say to me, but I am spiritual. And so I say, well, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by spiritual? And quite often they'll just say, well, no, I don't know what you actually mean by that. Like it's a popular phrase to use. I am spiritual, and of course we'll have that in our dialogue about, there's spirituality, but what could that be? Well, to me, it seems it's that inquiry into the very sense of beingness that brings you to that which is spiritual. To do that, you have to live a good life, obviously. One has to live a life which has impeccability, and a life which is, where we don't harm other beings, where we don't harm this body, where we respect the rule of law, or we respect nature. That's all part of a good life, because without that, life is just very confusing, and the memory system gets all messed up with foolish behavior. And Buddhism always lays that out first, that if you want to do this work, if you want to live this path, it's terribly important that our social dimension is well cared for. And that is the dimension of not being selfish. Because if it was only introspection, then like the whole spiritual life could become very narcissistic and self-concerned all the time. But that doesn't work either, because that's still a kind of ego kind of attitude. So that laying out a foundation of moral impeccability or ethical responsibility is very important. And it leads to a lot of stability of mind and well-being and a lack of remorse. And the heart's kind of open to life because it hasn't transgressed the laws of nature and the laws of our mutual dependence on each other and other things. And then there's our whole the psychology of our being, our whole emotion, all the emotional tones and moods that we experience, and all the likes and dislikes, and all of that inner both turmoil and joy, all of that needs to be understood too. Because if we're just fraught with our emotional reactions to life, then we're always just kind of out there, being like a leaf in the wind, being stimulated by things or being upset by things, and there's no real stability for a deeper spiritual inquiry. So this is psychology, or this is the hindrances in Buddhism, or greed, hatred, and delusion, all these ways we talk about that. And each of us has our own condition. So my own life was very much filled with a lot of fear, and liberating that fear from the heart has freed the capacity for me to pay attention and inquire into the kind of spiritual aspect. Other people have a lot of anger. Other people, suffer from a lot of self-doubt, or other people have had really rough childhoods, and they deal with all kinds of difficult self-hatreds, and then you have things like self-harming. So that inner world can be very, very complex, and it's very important to understand that, and each of us works in our own way. And I found that, like for me, because my training with Ajahn Chah and Ajahn Sumedho was to actually use the inner turmoil as a way of developing stronger awareness, rather than just trying to fix it. Actually seeing that the fears that I suffered from as a young man were things that would strengthen my awareness. Now, before that, I thought that, well, I need to get rid of the fear so that I have no fear in the heart, so that my mind's clear and I'll be free in some kind of a way. But that was always a kind of me trying to get rid of something, me trying to become something else. That never worked. But when I began to take refuge in awareness, irrespective of the objective experience, then I began to see, oh yeah, awareness is possible within the most horrible kinds of fears, or within the most beatific kinds of love. That awareness is this possibility, this constant possibility. And that's the training I always had from Luang Por Sumedho, Luang Por Chah. Be the knowing, they would say, be aware. I use the word objects a lot when I talk about Dhamma. And by objects, I don't mean just flowers and cushions and trees and people. Not just that, but it's all of experience is objective. So all the sounds that I hear, they are objects in awareness. Dynamic objects. I would say objects sound very static, but all the smells that I experience, they are objects in awareness. All the visual images that I see, or mental images that I see, they are objects in awareness. All the tactile feelings, they are objects in awareness. All the emotions, all the memories, all the planning, all the analysis, all the thought, they're all objects in awareness. They come and they go according to causes and conditions. And being a human being on the planet, I have to figure out how to live with objects, how to live with the objects of nature, the objects of consciousness, of my own inner experience. But can experience itself ever really fulfill you? So what's fulfillment for you? I mean, how would you, it's a common word we use, what would fulfillment mean? Well, for me, it was, and it's always been, a sense of not needing anything, a sense of peacefulness, a sense of deep love for the way things are. And so the Buddhist teaching was very, very good for me because it didn't tell me how to do that. It told me what was getting in the way. And what was getting in the way was my preoccupation with objects. And how was I preoccupied with objects? It was always through fear, through, for me, let's say, I don't know for about you, if I just think back 75 years, what were the real compelling objects that preoccupied my attention? And they were fear, self-disparagement. Sure, there was lust and greed, but the dominant ones were very much self-hatred, fear, anxiety, and then the other kind of minor obsessions. But the major theme, the major drama was around that. And once I began to be able to witness fear as an object rather than be the subject, then I realized that's the way. Because now I'm emphasizing awareness rather than the objective experience of fear. And that's what I was trying, that's what I always tried to do, actually, when I asked you to listen to sound and then feel the breath and then toggle between the two. Listen to sound, feel the breath. And what I'm emphasizing is the stillness of knowing rather than the objective experience. You know, I always talk that way. And when you do that, when you emphasize the knowing rather than the sound itself, when you emphasize that, to me, that's the gateway to the spiritual. Objects are the gateway to the world. And so that's where desire functions. The function of desire is that that you're comfortable, you take care of the body, that you feed it. The function of desire is that you care for your family and you take care of the animal. The function of desire is to make sure you don't, like this morning, it was 1 degree, really cold wind. Make sure you don't catch cold, Viradhammo. You're an old man now. This is the function of desire. Right? That's its function. But can desire ever be really fulfilling? Desire for objects, that is. We all have an aspiration to spiritual life. I think that's why we're here. Well, desire itself, what is it? What is desire seeking? What is desire seeking? Isn't it desirelessness? Isn't it what desire is looking for? It's looking for the end of itself, kind of thing. Isn't desirelessness where we find peace? Because if you look at desire is actually going out into the objective world, and it's necessary. I'm not saying it's not, but does it ever end? Just like the objective experience that we have, it keeps changing, right? It keeps shifting. You feel satisfied for one little bit, and then there's a shift because the fulfillment through desire can never be still, because it's always dependent on emotions, on social situations, on your body being a certain way, on the weather being right, and having enough salad oil on your salad, or whatever you want, whichever way you want to go. So whether it's salad dressing or a broken leg, the objective world is very contingent. Having dealt with that, you see that anything that changes and is contingent on other things, you'll never find freedom there. You'll never find the spiritual there. And so what do you have left? What do you have left? Well, you have this ineffable knowing. So when I ask myself, or when I say to myself, I am 75 years old, and I say, well, yeah, okay, who is the I? Where's that I? My mind goes silent. All I have is knowing. That's all that's left. Now, is that sufficient? Well, for desire, it's not sufficient, because desire is that which is always going into objects. So I asked the question, who is 75 years old? And then it's very silent. And then my foot itches. So then I scratch my foot. And then what? And then I think, it's a really nice cake for lunch. Maybe we'll have some tomorrow. Got a lot of cake, enough cake. And I think, oh, that'd be nice. And then I get dull and I fall asleep. So what happens is that clarity of attention quickly, very quickly, gets absorbed into objects, thought, or like say, just sitting meditation. You're sitting there, very, very, very quiet, very bright, and all of a sudden your head's on your chest. You're lost in objects. The object's called dullness, right? Thought and so on. Or the mind is fantasizing about whatever, or it's regretting something. And so the default mode of our conscious experience is distraction. We're distracted by things. Now, when those distractions are pleasant, we get absorbed. So, like you like to play sport, you play a game of whatever, or you like to make things, you like to cook, or you like to like videos, or sex, drugs, and rock and roll, whatever you want. The attention gets absorbed into experience through pleasure, obviously, but can pleasure ever sustain itself? It can't. It can't, because it's contingent on all other things. And then you have to look for another one. So, but what about desirelessness? What would that look like? What might that look like? Well, if you try this, I recommend people to do lying meditation. And this is a very good way to learn about desirelessness. You lay down in the lying posture and you do lying meditation. And then you're lying there within 30 seconds, you want to scratch yourself or you want to shift. That's desire. That's desire to move. Not illegal, not against the precepts. You can move if you want. But what if you were to look at desire as an object in itself? What if you would do that? Well, when you do that in lying meditation, because it's not, fraught with pain or anything, you see that the desire to move ceases. And you begin to touch desirelessness in a little way. And you begin to see, well, the peace of mind that can be with unfulfilled desire. Now that's interesting. That's interesting because it's not dependent on an object. Now do that with fear. Now fear isn't like some kind of little itch. Fear is like some serious stuff coming up into the mind. Now, how would you look at fear in the same way? How could fear lead to desirelessness? Well, the obvious thing is that fear is an emotion which is conditioned from various angles and causes, but there's a tremendous amount of desire there, the desire not to have fear. So if I make awareness the most important thing, and I begin to pay attention to desire, and the emotions are difficult, or the bodily pain is difficult, or boring, or whatever, and I see desire as an object. Well, that's hard to do. But if I see desire, because there's not only the fear or the whatever it is, but there's also the desire around that object. And I can begin to kind of pay attention. Well, what does desire feel like? What does it feel like to have something that I don't want, or to not want something that I do have, in a reasonable way, not in a way where you hurt yourself or others, just in a reasonable, as a contemplative exercise. It's very important, very important. So then maybe let's say I'm with a group of 5, 6 people, and one of the people is irritated. So there's sound, the object of sound, and for some reason, the object of sound becomes unpleasant because I don't like the person, I have a history with the person. Now, as a meditator, you might if you're really heedless, you just buy into it. You tell the person he's a turkey, or you just repress it and then come home all stressed. Okay, that's one way to operate. But what if you then use that very negativity in this sound that you're hearing as a way of looking at desire? So now there's not only 6 people talking and one impacting you in a negative way, there's also awareness of desire. And what is desire? Shut up. I don't want you to talk. Go away, drop dead. May you be well and happy somewhere else. So then what are you doing? Now you're emphasizing awareness rather than the desire for this person to be different than they are. Again, I assuming it's not abusive. And as you emphasize awareness and you see desire as an object, then desire eventually ceases. And you can be with this person, and it might be a bit irritating, but you're centered now in awareness. This is in awareness. And you walk out of that meeting much less stressed, but also what you've strengthened is awareness. And as you strengthen awareness, you strengthen the gateway to the spiritual. It's hard to do. It's very hard to do. We're just reading the biography of Ajahn Chah. I keep mentioning this, but we are now at the last stage of his illness. And very powerful reading, because he has and what we read this morning and yesterday, he has an operation to relieve liquid in his brain. He's got too much liquid in his brain, and they put a shunt in to his brain down to his stomach. And they want to, after the operation, they want to give him painkillers. He says, no, I just want to witness the pain. Whoa. And then he says, and I wanted to witness the anesthesia too, but it snuck up on me. Now, this powerful man, but what's he emphasizing? I just want to be aware of it. So his refuge and awareness is so powerful that all conditions arise and cease, no matter how extreme, and he abides as the witness. And that's what, I'm not asking you to give up your meds. Please don't. But can you see that this witnessing consciousness, this awareness of the way things are, is not really the same as a sense experience? Witnessing no sense experience, certainly. I know that I have pain in my right knee, or I know that sugar tastes sweet, right? But what is that knowing? Is that knowing a quality? And that's what I try to indicate in these meditations. When you're listening to sound and you're receptive, does knowing have a quality? The sound has a quality. Yeah. If the sound were to change, you have the lawnmower going or someone talking, the sound would change. But does awareness change to a different quality? And then you take bodily aches and pains. It doesn't. It doesn't. And if you trust in that, you're beginning. We say these are the gateways. That's the gateway to the deathless, so the unconditioned, or nibbana, or God, or whatever language you like to use around spirituality. That's the opening, the knowing. And then the pull of sense experience, which you have to respect, is to some extent, not totally, but the fascination with sense objects is the closing of the door. Not totally, because you have to still function. So what we try to do in what we call our practice is to develop this real foundation in witnessing, irrespective of pleasure and pain, irrespective of liking and disliking. And that becomes what we call the practice. What we say, like if someone is having a hard time, their practice clicked in. That's what we mean by that. And it doesn't mean that we're always loving or really super together or whatever. It just means witnessing the way things are. If you do that and you keep that inquiry going, then there are times which are not emotionally impacting. There are times where things are very neutral. That's a very important time to actually strengthen that, because when things get neutral and get boring, people, they do something to get rid of the boredom. But you really want to create space in your life and in consciousness. Now inquire into that. Well, who am I? what is this I that's 75? And if you find a fixed thing, send me an email or send Beta an email. Otherwise, if you find a fixed thing called Joe Blogs or whatever, then you can fire him. But what will you find? What do you, if you ask right now, what will you find? Won't you find silence? Now, if you think that the question, who am I, or who is 75 years old, or whatever, needs an answer, then that's just another object. And then, of course, you could go on in kind of like infinite mirrors. Who said that? I said that. Who's I? You know, it's ridiculous. But if you just put that question to yourself once, well, whatever age you are, well, who is 75? I am 75. Say it. Say it to yourself. I am 75. Okay, if I do that now, there's perception of sound and sight and body. Sure, that's moving, but is there another piece called I? I can't see it. But there is consciousness, there is awareness. And this is why the spiritual life is so, shall we say, mysterious? Not mysterious in a way that it's trying to dupe you into some kind of dogma or view. It's very subtle. It's very subtle because it's not an object. It is the very knowing itself. And abiding as the knowing is what we mean by refuge in Buddha. That's what we're talking about when we say Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, abiding as witness, abiding as knowing. And trusting in that is hard to do because our minds love to doubt. Our minds love to think. Our minds love to analyze, which has its place, but not in the spiritual life. The spiritual life is not the answer to a question intellectually. Intellectually, I need to have an answer to, let's say, I'm making a bed right now, and it's made of red oak, and I did the side rails, and then I need to do the end rails, and I measured the end rails, and I'm going to cut the tenon. So that's intellect, right? That's where I use thought to solve a problem. Great. But can you, like with just knowing the way things are, is that an intellectual exercise of analysis and answers and questions? I would say no. I would say it's a remembering and a simple awakening and sustaining that awake sense of presence. It's always there, like the bodily pains that come and go in a 75-year-old body, they come and go. The sounds, they come and they go. The memories and analysis and emotions, they come and they go. What does not come and go? Does witnessing ever really, is it ever not there? Have you ever not been here, wherever here is? These are strange questions to ask, but what I'm asking is like, what is the spiritual life for you? Now, you could say, well, I believe in something, fine, okay. But then that's just a thought. That's just an idea. So even having like good Buddhist ideas, it's just good Buddhist ideas. So this isn't a dogmatic thing. It's a kind of, I would say it's a challenge to go beyond intellect. So many Buddhists that I meet, they're so clever. They're really clever. And, you know, they'll quote stuff from the text. I won't know. I don't know. They'll ask me a word in Pali and say, "Go beats me." So sometimes we fool ourselves like if you've read a lot of Buddhism, and Buddhism is a lot of literature, and then commentary of the literature and so on and so forth. And characters like me put books out. So there's a lot of stuff out there. But can the intellect ever take you to silence? Yes, it can, if you're willing to ask a question and let go of the need for an answer. That's the only way. But analysis will never take you to silence. It will take you to another doubt. So without dismissing intellect, giving its due, what is beyond intellect? Well, I would say it's the knowing. The knowing is not a thought. When I say listen to sound, is that a thought? No. The analysis of sound, that sounds like a crow. That's thought, that's analysis, that's its place. But just before I make any perceptions or judgments or whatever, what is that? It's silence. So our entry into the spiritual life, I would say, and the expansion of that is through silent knowing. Now, there's just one problem with that, is that silent knowing that very easily for meditators, and most of us have been meditating for some time, can very much creep into getting rid of thought. This is so common for all of us, because every now and then the whole thing shuts down. Oh, thank you. It finally shut up there. And, you feel so great. Oh, and then blah, I've got it, blah, blah, blah. It starts up again. So the danger with these kind of teachings is that then you try to get rid of thought. But the silence of knowing is not the silence of no thought. It's the silence of knowing. And to get there, you have to allow yourself the fact that worry is like this, or planning is like this. So like right now, we're just starting our building project. And there's a great big pit out here now, and it's very exciting, but it's also very frightening because it costs a lot of money and the prices are just going through the roof, right? So we had a meeting today and we had a meeting yesterday. And what does that do? That stimulates thought. How could it do anything like that? So then I know, with a meeting about planning and finances, there are thoughts about planning and finances. It's natural. Rather than, when I'm meditating, then I'll have no thought. Shut up. But that's impossible. Having stimulated intellect and dealing with problems, the mind will have an echo of thought. It's natural. So then I meditate, I notice thoughts come up about this or that. But that's not a problem. If I truly understand what witnessing is, it's just natural. But if I'm a kind of card-carrying Buddhist meditator, then I just meditate, focus on samadhi or whatever I call that, on the breath, and I try to get rid of thought. It's a disaster. It really is. Now, just sitting there and planning the finances for an hour, that's useless as well. So I take refuge in knowing, I recognize, this is planning. Planning feels this way, which isn't a repression of thought. It's stepping back to the spiritual witnessing of thought as thought. Very hard to do again. So one of the things that you find anyone recommends is that when you awaken to the fact that, like if I awaken to the fact that I'm planning something I'm not aware of, but I see myself planning, it's like this. And then if I'm really anxious, then, anxiety feels like this. So someone near us went to town 3 days ago. We need to get some sheets of 3/4 inch ply, bolted ply, which we use a lot. And he just checked out the shop. It was about $150 a sheet or something, and did buy it. 3 days later, he comes back, he buys it, but it's $20 more in 3 days. And the abbot and he said, "What? No, stop building. Let's make a goldfish pond." And that's known as fear or panic. And then I know, this is worry. Worry feels this way. And then we had a meeting and we talked about it. We said, yeah, let's go for it. We'll be right. But due diligence, we do due diligence. We do that and think about it. But I could see in my heart, oh gosh, what's going to happen? And is that wrong? Should I, as a monk, I've been a monk for a long time, should I be some kind of block of rock that I never feel anything? No, I have emotions and I have feelings. This is very, very natural. But I'm not going to take refuge in those emotions. I've done that enough. I can take refuge in knowing. then you get past the idea of repression. If you don't do that, then you're always just trying to get rid of these things. Oh no, I have to focus on the breath, or I have to do metta bhavana as a way of actually getting rid of. Not that those are bad in themselves, but when the intention is to get rid of something, they won't work. But recognizing what is there, oh, this is fear, or this is worry. Okay, then there's worry. What can I do? I can do this, I can do that. Fine, that's rational. But my awareness then is my that's what I hold to, awareness. And this way, worldly things become Dhamma practice. You know, the idea of a monk or a nun is not just shaven-headed folk that wear funny clothing and don't eat in the afternoon or things like that, but rather they are archetypes. A monk or a nun are archetypes of spiritual aspiration. That's what they were meant to be in society. The fourth heavenly message. The aspiration to Nibbana, the aspiration to peace, to freedom. And then the monastery is also kind of a model of a place of spiritual practice. Now, we still have worldly considerations. We still get flat tires and someone has to cook the food and there are finances to look at and so on. So it's still, world is still going on. You don't get away from that, obviously. But the whole point of the exercise of monastery is the sustaining of the heart of awareness. So then the very problems that we have in building a big building is problematic. It can't be anything but that, becomes a practice. And it's the practice of due diligence and care, but it's also the practice of awareness of the way things are. Then the building project is a monastery. Then family is a monastery. Then work is a monastery. Then sickness is a monastery. Because they're all different worldly situations we're in, but our focus is not just completing the task in a reasonable way, but also taking refuge in awareness. And that just makes you stronger. So I look at something and it kind of, freaks me out a bit. Oh, this is what it feels like to be nervous or anxious. What can I do? What can I not do? So the spiritual life is all the time. It's 24/7, all the time. And then a lot of these problematic things actually are much more meaningful. I don't want them. You know, I'd rather we could just go, boing, Dharma hall's done, but I haven't figured out how to do that yet. You know, we have to do something more complicated called building work. But all of the building work isn't just about an endpoint, is it? It has to be about mindfulness and awareness and awakening to the way things are. And then at the end of it, not only hopefully do we have a good building, but we have good human beings, wise human beings, a community which is not in discord, but a community which is in accord with what has been done. And that's the way Ajahn Chah always taught us. You know, he quite often, he'd have work projects. Like sometimes we'd have nothing in the monastery. You just have all day, it's too much space. Just meditate on your own, hour after hour after hour. And then you'd have 12 hours a day work projects in the heat. And you say, I want to meditate. And then of course, when you didn't have a work project, I want to work. And he would just play around like that, but it was all meditation. A lot of work, exhaustion. Sometimes he would like sunset at Wapapong was around 6 in the evening, and you think, oh, finally, I can have a shower and I don't have to do any construction work. He had this massive generator and he got the lights going. And he said, oh, well, a few more hours, come on. And 3 hours, 4 hours, and the mind would be grumbling and complaining. I didn't come here for this. This is ridiculous. In the suttas, it says monks should be sitting under a tree and meditating. Grumble, grumble, grumble. And he would smile and say, how are you doing? Suffering, are you? And so he never let us just define meditation as some posture or some disengagement with society in some kind of abstract way. No, real life. I'm really grateful for that, because I wasn't taught a technique in meditation. I was always encouraged, awaken to the way things are, because that's the true spiritual opening. And then when you abide in that opening, because it is an opening, isn't it? Like when I witness sound, I'm now open to awareness. When I'm fascinated by sound, I'm with sound, which is fine. But if I don't do this, I'm never open to the silence of the mind. But if I begin to do that and have a taste for that, I mean, wow, it's vast, it's spacious, it's loving. If I can just sustain that witnessing of the way things are. So I've kind of talked a lot. I'll leave that for your reflection. Maybe questions?
Andayam Dhamma Kataya Sadhu Gatam Dhamma Se Sadhu 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 Anumodami.
Any questions, Vita, that we have?
We'd like to now open the floor and invite everyone to ask any questions, provide any comments or feedback, or just say something to Luang Por. Feel free to click on the raise hand button and
There's Malika.
yes, that's Malika. Malika, can you unmute yourself?
There you go. Hi, Malika.
Hi, happy birthday, Ajahn.
Thank you.
And Ajahn Karunuko is still at Dhammagiri.
Oh, is he? Oh, great.
Yeah, yeah. So they gave a chant, a blessing for you on your birthday.
Oh, thank you. I feel blessed to pieces.
Ajahn, you were talking about stillness of knowing, and how does it relate to sound of silence? I hear that all the time.
Yeah. Luang Por Sumedho, just for others, Luang Por Sumedho teaches a lot. I used to, probably less now, but just, Malik, I'll give a background of where that's coming from. So in the Indian tradition, you have something called Nada Yoga. And Nada is sound.
Yeah.
And Luang Por Sumedho, when he was in Hampstead Vihara, 1977, 78, as a young novice, he had, in his meditations, began to notice a very high-pitched, almost electronic sound, which I think most of us have noticed when he was meditating. And then he sort of forgot, didn't use it much. And then when he was in Hampstead in London, where we spent 2 years in London, he was walking along a very busy street, Haverstock Hill, and the sound was really powerful, very powerful. So he decided to use that as a way of exploring silence, exploring consciousness. And he used it a lot and would listen to that even in complex situations. He'd be in the tube in London and listening to it where there were loud noises and so on. That became a kind of grounding for him. So the sound of silence is not something that you should seek, because otherwise you become greedy, but it is a sign of the mind resting in peace and silence and emptiness. And for some people, it's a very powerful thing. For some people, it's annoying. Some people ask, is it tinnitus, whatever way you pronounce that. But Malika, just for you, that when there is the know, when you abide as the knowing, and you rest in that, and you allow sound consciousness to be there, quite often you'll notice that. Then use that as a way of just keeping the mind resettled into the spaciousness of receptivity. So it's not the same. For me, it's a sign of wholesome presence that helps to sustain that wholesome presence. So it's not the same as like hearing the robins outside or or hearing some chanting. It's not like that. And so the way to use that is to heighten or emphasize the knowing. If you emphasize the knowing, then that sound can be very helpful, because it's a very kind of it's very vast and spacious, and you can abide as that vast spaciousness, and gives you a sense that awareness is not really concentration on an object. It's open, it's receptive, and sustaining that can be very helpful to cultivate that attitude. Having said that, if you try to look for it as an experience, if it's not there naturally, you can get caught up into thinking you have to get it. And as soon as you do that, you're in desire. And when you're in desire, you're in disaster. So I would say, if in like in open awareness or receptive awareness it's noticed, then abide as witness to that. Allow that to be an indicator that the practice is in a good place. And if it's not there, don't worry. Don't worry about it. Some people have a real affinity to it. Some people use it a lot. Some people don't. I just taught that for many, many years. But people did sometimes get hung up on it, right, trying to find it. Or then they became conceited. I've got it. Have you? Which is silly. So it really is a kind of indicator of silent presence. That's what you're always emphasizing: silent presence, witnessing. Does that help?
Yeah, Johnny. So it's always in the background. So
yes.
So it's okay, isn't it? Because then I come back to my breath and just ignore.
Or just use that. Just use the background.
Okay.
You can experiment with that. Just be the background. What is the background?
Okay.
I mean, it's really worth experimenting with that, where you don't always have to focus on the breath. Say.
Okay.
The thing is, sometimes in meditation you kind of think you have to do one way, but awareness is very free to experiment. So I would kind of say, well, what if I just abide as background? Play around with that.
Yeah, because it's always there, and that's
exactly.
It's bothering me, and I feel that I had to go back to my breath. Now
Not
I
necessarily,
understand. Yeah. Now I understand.
Yeah. Look at any kind of compulsions or almost duty. I must watch my breath. They're the kind of leftover of technique-oriented practices, which were good in the beginning.
Yeah.
But now you're beyond that now. You can let go of the techniques.
Okay.
Because techniques can also be very much conjoined with a sense of me doing.
Mm.
And you want to more and more liberate the me doing to just knowing. Yeah. So I would experiment and be worthy. Yeah.
Yeah. Even now I can hear it. I can feel it.
then explore that. It'll be good. Okay.
Thank you, Ajahn. Thank you.
All right. David, you're next, I think. I got your letter. Thank you. Mute. There you go.
I think Glenda wants to ask you a question.
Hello.
Okay, Glenda.
Hi.
Hi, Glenda.
Hi. I'm really feeling moved by your teachings and presence. And in terms of knowingness, connecting, just pure knowingness, can there be like a feeling of compassion along with knowingness, like compassionate knowingness, or is compassion more a feeling and that's still an object?
Good question. I think they do come together, but if you equate it to too strong a feeling, then you try to find the feeling. But I think abiding, what I find is when I go to the question of who am I, then it goes right to the heart. And the heart feels very open and is an abiding in awareness. If I try to get this kind of compassionate feeling, then it doesn't work because it's a me trying to go there. So it seems to me the more there is the letting go of a me, and there's a direct observation of the sense of me, actually, it's interesting, then the heart has a kind of openness and a sense of, yeah, this is right. This is appropriate. Now, if, however, I'm annoyed at something going on, and then I think I should be compassionate, that's a disaster. Because that's a rejection of this feeling of annoyance, which also needs compassion. But if I go to the feeling, well, who is feeling annoyed? Then there's an openness of mind to accept the annoyance as just another object. And so compassion, it seems to me, or love, or whatever you want, is the perfection of awareness. Because, well, maybe that's not well put. How do I put it? That awareness accepts all things and rejects none. One way to put it. That's intellectually, right? We can understand that. But what would that be like as an embodied being? And it seems to me it would be in this way of open-heartedness. So I would, like Linda, I would experiment with that and see what is compassion beyond the, or love or whatever, what is it beyond the individual references to love that we have? So I see a grandchild and there's a loving feeling to the grandchild. Well, those are very obvious. But what would it be if it wasn't designated by a person or a me? What would that be? What would that openness be like? And the way I get there is by, like, when my mind is, like, let's say I started to panic about the cost of plywood sheets. And then the strong sense of self comes up, right? And then I say, well, who is thinking? And that takes me right to the heart. I've done this a lot, so it's kind of, you know, it's easy for me. So I'd experiment with that. Now, in Theravada Buddhism, we say that we talk about the unshakable deliverance of the heart. And in the heart, I would say, is what we call the Brahma Viharas, which are metta, which is loving kindness, karuna, which is compassion, mudita, which is joy, and upekkha, which is peace. And these four are the dynamic response to the world of a freed heart, of a liberated heart, of the unshakable deliverance of the heart. And they're dynamic because you don't always feel compassion. Sometimes you feel joy. You know, the kind of nuances of love, shall we say. And that's the way it's phrased in Theravada Buddhism. But it is an open-heartedness. So when you see your grandchild, or if you have a grandchild, and the grandchild has just made a drawing for you, say, you know, of a sunset, and it's definitely Picasso, right? And you feel so much joy at the grandchild's creativity. And then the grandchild falls and bruises its knee, and you feel so much compassion. So it's dynamic, but it's very loving. It's very open in that way. And that's what I think, hopefully we get to in this sense of knowing that it's not just cerebral. It's not just the head knowing stuff, that it's very much grounded in a pure presence from the heart, from the body, those kind of. So it's a very good question, actually, to kind of emphasize that. Now, in Theravada Buddhism, we tend sometimes to make the practices of what we call metta bhavana, practice of loving kindness, a kind of prayerful thing. So we say, you know, may my granny be well, and may my neighbors be well, and I send the metta. That's the language that we have. But that's very dualistic language. There's a me and there's a them. Another way to look at that is their stream of consciousness. And a stream of consciousness, there's a possibility of freedom through open-hearted awareness. And that's what you begin to incline towards. It's not about other people, it's about the heart being open. And when the heart closes, the reference of awareness is, well, why is that? Why is the heart closed down? It might close down through self-disparagement. You know, you have a memory of something that you did which was clumsy, and then the memory comes up and the heart closes up to guilt, self-disparagement. You become very aware of that. Oh, if you're staying here in the heart, then it's not an analysis. You say, oh yeah, that's the closed heart. What would the open heart feel like? You're right there with the action. If you take it into thought, you're not with the action anymore. You're one step removed. And that one step removed can be really confusing. So let's say if I feel, let's say I said something untoward to someone, and then I remember it, and a feeling of guilt comes up. Well, if I'm just with the guilt at the heart, it can't proliferate. And I'm with it, and I stay with the ugliness of that, not ugliness, the pain of that feeling, then that will open the heart, because I'm with the heart. If I take the thought, oh, it can go anywhere. It can go anywhere. Is that sort of where your territory is there?
Yeah. I find that helpful. It feels like it's like I'm the feeling of the heart. It's whatever's happening, whatever. There's an openness to it.
Great.
Right.
And when if it closes down, you open to that closing.
That's right. Like there's endless openings and reopening, and that in itself feels like compassion. That there's forever opening.
Exactly. Yeah. Beautifully put. And what you get from that is a lot of confidence, because there's a rightness to it. Yeah, this is right. Not through thought analysis. That this is right. This is correct. And much of your spiritual life is guided by that sense of correctness. For yourself, yes, this is the path. This is correct. This works. This is fulfilling whatever. And it's not the same as having a nice meal. It's a different kind of fulfillment. It's spiritual fulfillment. It's a good question. Thank you. Yeah.
So much.
David. Okay. We're done.
Thank you for the question.
Okay.
And we have
Miri.
Miri.
Hi, Miri. What's the temperature in Perth?
It's getting cooler now in Perth.
What's cool?
Probably maybe 18 degrees right now. Just check. Something like it's like 10 degrees at night now. It's actually quite nice.
Nice temperature, yeah.
Much nicer. It was a bit warm before. David in India, he's in a horrible heat wave. It's like over
how much? 40?
Every
Chennai
day.
was about 44, wasn't it?
North India, it's really, really hot. Where David is around 40 every day. Yes.
Oh,
and
Canada.
Humid a lot of the time, so it's like being in a soup. So he's found it. He's found he doesn't know if she's fully enlightened, but there's somebody who's reported to be fully awakened that he's going to sit with every day, and he says he gets incredibly quiet and happy.
Where in Chennai, or where?
In Tiruvannamalai. Tiruvannamalai. Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
Anyway, my question was just not really a question, but an observation about silence, and that of all the senses, like hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, and thinking, that the silence is interesting because it's like the absence of sound is like an active presence in a way. So we don't have any sense of no sight. We don't say sightless or tasteless, but we say that the silence. And I find of all the sense modalities, it's the absence of the sound that seems to most positively touch on that awareness. They sort of say quietness, or they say a quiet mind, and the silence. And for me, it's not even the nada, that high pitched. It's behind that, and it feels like best way to describe it when it becomes salient, is like a cushion of silence, and it's underneath all the sound, everything that's happening.
Yeah, it's beyond the nada, isn't it?
It's beyond the nada. The nada's still an object. It's still it's in their head. Still This is.
I found that I didn't use the nada much in my own practice. Luang Por Viradhammo used it a lot,
Yeah.
but he doesn't talk about it much now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, good reflection. And you're pretty proficient at that?
No. I have a lot of problem with just thoughts just keep arising. So I'm if the more I do it, the better it gets. So after a retreat or something, it's much more salient. But yes, with meditation, I'm still trying to find a way to get to just not take the thoughts seriously. Just they keep hijacking, they keep distracting, they keep saying, look at me, look at me. And I say, go away.
But then also you being an academic, you're stimulating that realm a lot.
Yes, yeah, that's right. And I'm also writing on that in my philosophy. I'm trying to build a metaphysical system around it. So, like, here's some data, and then next thing I'm trying to, So yes.
you were going to do a book on Advaita and Theravada. Is that the book?
Yeah. It's a long-term project. I'm very, very slow. It takes me a long time. I think I'll go to half the speed. I'm like the slow modem of philosophers. I'm not a fast internet. My mind, it takes me a long time to just figure stuff out. So this has been going years. I mean, I'm hoping in my lifetime it'll get done.
That's modest. Well, you don't want to come back and do it again, do you?
No. I want to come back and then read his work by, who's this Muriel Bahari? I have a resonance with her work. That's
a good.
Anyway,
well, I'm going to live to be 120, so you better get it done by then.
Happy birthday as well. And
Thank you, Mary. You might press the David. Yeah,
I will.
If you find it, what's the name of the Swami's name? If you could send me her name.
Her name is Gangama.
Gangama.
No one knows.
Because Amarasiri is going to be in. Amarasiri is going to be in Tiruvannamalai in January with his mother.
Oh, all right. So she's at the moment. It's at a stage where there's not that many people. So it's not standing room only yet. So David just goes every day. He says lots of people ask silly questions, but he just sits there and bathes in the quietness.
Oh, sounds great. Yeah.
And his mind becomes naturally incredibly quiet, still, and happy.
Through her presence.
In her presence, and he doesn't want to commit himself to saying that she's a jnani, which is like the equivalent of the arahant. But he says the more he goes, the more telling signs there are. And one of the signs he says is, how quiet you are in their presence. So he sat with Maharaj and Papaji and Lakshmana Swami, and in all of their presence, he felt very quiet. And so this is but she's not well known about. You can't Google her or anything like that. She's still a well-kept secret. Yes,
that's the beauty of India.
Yeah,
Produces these wonderful beings. Yeah. Well, give them my best when you.
I will.
Yeah.
I will.
Okay. Nice chat. Bye, Miri. Okay, Beta, are we done? Or
Okay, Luang Por. There are no more questions from the floor, Luang Por.
okay.
And shall we close by chanting the words of loving kindness, Luang Por?
Yes, that would be nice. You want me to lead?
Yes.
Or do you want to lead?
No, please lead.
I'll lead, okay.
Put up the
We'll
slide.
do it from here. Nice and loud. And you got it on the screen there? This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you, Bita, for hosting us, as always.
Thank you so much, Luang Por. And may we all now please pay respects to you, Luang Por, as we take leave from you, and sending you all the well wishes.
You're not going to get tired of all this bowing, Bita.
No,
Huh?
we will bow till you're 100.
It's good. It's good for the spine. Okay, let's go for it.
All right, so please let us all now put our palms together and with rejoice in our hearts that we now please pay respects to the Venerable One. First bow. Second bow. Final bow. Take care, Luang Por.
Okay, nice to be with you. See you next time.
Okay, bye.
Ciao. Don't worry, be happy.